Welcome to the Awakened Human Podcast, the place to be for highly progressive yet extremely grounded intuitive guidance, energetic support, metaphysical tools, and higher consciousness for highly successful, ambitious, soul-centered visionaries and leaders like you who want to make a global impact and achieve your highest fulfillment by aligning with your soul's true divine agenda and your role in God's source creators, the divine's plan for lighted creation, and by utilizing your divine gifts, talents, and abilities from the higher realms. We do this by working with the non-physical realms of higher guidance, energy, intuition, and powerful metaphysical tools for healing and transformation. We understand that the real change and transformation that's being called for on planet Earth and in our own lives and our own businesses doesn't come from outside of us, and it doesn't come from the top or from the bottom, but rather from within. And that the change that we desire to experience in our lives and in our world requires us to change from the inside. I'm your host, Lori Ann Spagna. I'm a best-selling author, spiritual catalyst, intuitive, energy worker, ascension guide, multidimensional channel, animal communicator, visionary, lightworker, and luminary. I have dedicated my entire professional life to helping thousands and thousands of humans and animals all over the world in service and contribution to the light, which is the expansion, the upliftment, the evolution of humanity, to awaken, to uplift, and to align with our true divine source, which exists within each and every one of us. It is my passion, joy, and purpose to share this information, energy, and consciousness with you. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing time with me. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Awakened Elevated Human Podcast. This is Lori Spagna. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad and grateful to have you all with me. And I really appreciate you. I so appreciate you. I want to share today a little bit about how we miscreate. And this is a long topic, so we'll cover this in multiple episodes. It's really important to understand. Before we can go into how we miscreate, you have to understand how we create. Most people don't really realize, because it will be almost impossible for someone to fully realize this if they're still carrying in their unconscious victim-victimizer program. So victim-victimizer, victim-perpetrator programs, when I refer to that, I'm referring to something that is not true or authentic to who we are. It is something that we have been programmed into over eons of time. As far back as the birth of human civilization, we've been victimized. And this is an unconscious program that has to be cleared, healed, and resolved. I call it cleared, healed, and resolved, so that it's no longer operating in our unconscious, right? An unconscious program is operating whether we're conscious of it or not. Great examples of people being in victim-victimizer are typically people who really believe that someone has done them wrong or something, people who are playing a blame game. Someone else is wrong for what was done to them. And we're not saying that the victim is wrong and that the victimizer is to blame. What we're saying is that is an old paradigm game. And I say we're, what I'm saying, but I realize it's weird because it's coming from my team, this information. So our job is to free and liberate ourselves from that programming so we can really restore ourselves to personal empowerment, which is not power over another, but rather power to have life experiences that are more to our liking and our desire, and to also live from a more empowered state so that we can share the greatness of who we are and be the greatness of who we are, be the best versions of ourselves. So we have to clear victim-victimizer programming, victim-victimizer, victim-perpetrator. A great example of humanity attempting to clear it is the Me Too movement or the Black Lives Matter movement. Those are movements where people are starting to realize as a sub-collectives, whether it's a Black community, like whether it's racial related or whether it's gender related, groups of people are coming together and recognizing they no longer want to identify in that victimized role. And they're attempting as a collective to reclaim their personal power or their group identification power. So that's a beautiful transformation happening in society. And it's still going on, even though it's not necessarily covered in the mainstream all the time. But when I do it energetically, right, I heal and resolve it. It just becomes something that just the person no longer resonates with. They're just like, I wish for the best of that. It's not where I'm playing anymore, because they're resolved of it and they have something else their soul wants to do. Okay, that said, so we have to understand how we create before we can even understand how we miscreate. And this is why I mentioned the victim-victimizer programming, because we have all kinds of programming. Maybe I'll do another show on that, but that we're unconscious of. And so if someone is still resonating in that bandwidth, this will be challenging. But if you're willing to up level and play along with me here at a higher level of consciousness, I'd love to share this with you. So the way we create is really, we could sort of put it into 4 categories. I think this is going to come out that way. First, through the mental plane. So the mental plane is everything we think, believe, and perceive, both conscious and unconscious. All of our opinions, all of our judgments. Most humans are not very conscious about what they're thinking, believing, and perceiving. But if you're listening to me, you're more likely, in what I'm being told right in this moment, the less than 10% of people on the planet who are more aware and conscious of what they think, believe, and perceive to varying degrees. That's what my team just told me. Okay, so whether or not that's a precise number, but I'm being told that's pretty accurate. Okay, so that's one of the first ways, because what we think, what we believe, what we perceive consciously and or unconsciously is like radio towers coming out of our mental plane of existence, is rippling out into the field of consciousness around us. And so those thoughts, beliefs, opinions, etc., are affecting the physical reality that we live in, because it's rippling out into the field around us like radio tower waves. And then that's the radio frequency, so to speak, bandwidth that we're on. And so we start experiencing things related to that. So if we think that we're a victim, we're going to have experiences of being victimized. Okay, if we believe it, either consciously or unconsciously. A lot of times people will say, well, I don't believe that, but they're carrying it in their unconscious, not necessarily just victim. Poverty is another example, or failure is another example, or being incapable of doing something or not believing something's possible for you. Those are all aspects of some different kinds of beliefs, right? So that's the first way we create. I want to give you an example that may seem so basic, but for years and years, I had this unconscious programming that I just needed to get away from people. And that was because I grew up in a household, I think, that was just so infringing, didn't have a lot of boundaries, healthy boundaries. There was no space physically and emotionally, energetically, mentally. Everybody was in your business. There's no healthy boundaries. And also, I grew up sort of being told, not on purpose, not making anyone wrong here, but that cities were so great. So I spent the first parts of my life, like I went to school in Boston. I grew up around New York City, Manhattan. I lived in Los Angeles for a lot of years. And it didn't dawn on me until years and years later that I was thinking the whole time, like, I just want to get away from people. I was aware that I was always trying to get away and I needed space. And yet I wasn't consciously aware that was operating. And so I was always sort of alienating myself unconsciously and suffering this trauma of being alienated and being lonely at the same time. It was a really hot mess, entangled mess in my unconscious. When I finally moved to Maui, and I lived in Maui for 2 years, I went through a 2-year dark night of the soul, which I could do a whole show on that. But it helped me to finally get in touch with who I was really, because I needed to do that. And what I was here for, and rediscover and reclaim my own self. And that's what the rest of my life started to be dedicated to, doing this kind of work. So we don't always realize how things are operating, because it was like, on the one hand, that's what I really needed. On the other hand, it was creating a very alienating situation. By the way, years after that, I was still on the quest, I still am, for spaciousness and room to breathe without interference of artificial noises and sounds. Because I love the sound of silence. I love the hum of Mother Earth. I can hear her sing in the silence. I love that kind of thing. So that has also affected me sometimes in ways where I had to heal and resolve something deep within me that also was lonely and searching for friendships and connection that was deeply fulfilling and rewarding. The good that came out of that was I created all kinds of retreats and I created community on all my retreats where people feel so included and recognized and valued and appreciated within our community, because I made that a priority for people because that's what I was looking for. And at the same time, the downside of that was I was constantly inviting people into my personal life who really were not very good to me or kind to me, because it was coming from a wounded space of needing community. Once I cleared, healed, and resolved that, all of that went away. I actually took a hiatus from doing retreats for a year, although I'll be planning more this year. And I took some time off from attempting to make friends with anybody. When I say time, it was almost a period of over a year. I just started releasing, letting go of people who, and I have a certain sacred ritual for doing this, a prayer that I use and an energy practice, lovingly releasing those people who no longer are for my best and who maybe just were not in alignment anymore. And then allowing space for those people into my life who are more aligned and where the relationships are more mutually harmonious and beneficial. And organically and naturally, it started to happen, including my ideal soulmate clients and students and community. And you can do that with your business, right? There are practices for it. It's a way that we become more aligned, right? It's part of the process and part of the journey. Okay, so in any case, I had to heal and resolve those unconscious parts of me so that I could get out of like miscreating. Now, let's go to one of the other ways that we create and how we miscreate. So our emotional body, and it's really not a body, it's a field of energy, but it's often, we can refer to it as the emotional body, but it's a field of energy. That's where your emotions sit. Now, your emotions, they're not in your body, but your physical body is affected by them. Your emotional body is energetically outside of your body. And it is the emotional body that is in your field of energy. And this emotional body for most people on earth is either completely shut down to one extreme polarity, right? And they're just really disconnected from their emotions. I have a longtime college friend. I just love this person so much. And they're having a real challenge in their relationship, their long-term marriage, because their partner is really emotionally shut down and there's no real intimacy there. And I'm not talking about physical intimacy necessarily. I'm talking about the depth of emotional intimacy. It's missing, because that's an example that can really ruin a relationship when you're around people like that. Not only can that cause or contribute to divorce or a lack of love in a relationship or the lack of capacity for love in a relationship, it can also create the lack of connection with clients, family members, loved ones. But when you're around a person like that, you sort of feel like there's no depth, or you can't connect with them, or maybe it's a little more surface level relationship. Some people are quite comfortable there. It's fine, but then they're missing the richness of what's available, right? That can be healed and resolved. Now, on the other extreme, some people's emotional bodies are so filled up with gunk, energetic garbage, right? Those people are highly emotional, highly erratic. Now, I was one of those people. I grew up in that kind of dynamic, a lot of drama. My parents are both Leos. That's a very high drama. There's a lot of water in my field, which has the capacity for high drama. And I went through most of my life working on resolving these issues until I eventually came to a point where I realized I can work with these emotions in a whole new way. So next level of emotional, working with the emotional body, is using it as guidance, recognizing how to use it as guidance. For example, if something feels good, not unhealthy good, like a dopamine hit from ice cream or sugar, but healthy good, like exciting. You feel excited about something. You feel like, oh, I'd love to do that. That's good guidance. That's move in that direction. Take the right action. Even if a fear comes up, oh my God, how am I going to afford it? Oh my God, I don't have the time for it. That's just fear standing in the way, right? That's another form of emotional guidance. Don't let fear stand in the way of excitement, of optimism, of something you're enthusiastic about, something you're looking forward to. If you get excited about something, you want to follow that direction. Now, this is another example. So highly sensitive beings, by the way, highly emotional beings typically have too much gunk in our energy, emotional body. But what I'm just talking about there is using the emotions in a way for guidance, because every emotion can be a form of guidance. I just gave a very basic example. Now, even beyond that, you can get to an even more mature level, which is something I've been cultivating in the last few years for myself, that now I teach inside of the sacred mentorship. This is not a short teaching, but it is a fabulous teaching about how to mature the emotional body, the maturation of the emotional body. And it's an incredible process, because now the emotions no longer control or dictate you. They're just simply, you have an awareness of them and they have no power over you. But this is part of how we create and miscreate. Why? Because the emotional body is a magnetic field of energy, and that the emotional body is carrying energetics in your field that are rippling out around you, affecting things and people and spaces and places around you as a conscious being who's embodying in a body, a physical form, and then reflecting back at you. So we create and miscreate through the emotional experience. Same thing with the mental. Okay, I mentioned force, so I'm going to go on. The third one of how we create and sometimes miscreate is definitely through behaviors. And a lot of times we take or make behaviors and choices of actions that are either for our most benevolent best or are not. And sometimes we do things, we can be highly reactive. We can be sometimes self-sabotaging. Sometimes we have patterns of behaving. So let's say you're a person who really wants more friends, or you really want people to like you, but every time you show up in relationship, you're either whining or complaining or expressing somehow that something's not good enough, or you're saying nice words on the surface, but underneath, you're energetically, your energy field is full of like some form of misery or unkindness, something unconscious. Well, you're going to repel people. You're going to have exactly the opposite experience that you desire. So right behavior, right action, right alignment, right? The way you behave is part of how you create. This is a really big issue for the love and light community, because sometimes one of their biggest flaws is that they don't take appropriate action. They just want to stay in their comfort zones a lot of times. They want to feel love. They want to be love. That's beautiful. They want to be light, and they want to avoid their pain. So a lot of times they're unconsciously avoiding pain. I mean, people do this all the time anyway. And so they won't take action, and they're letting fear stop them unconsciously. And they're so comfortable in the love and light community, they don't take appropriate action. They don't break through their own glass ceilings, and they find ways, by the way, because the love and light community really is in general service oriented. I know, because I've been in it for so many years. They can just sort of stay in their comfort zone of doing service and living love and light and exchanging services, but they can't break free from their own glass ceilings, because they won't a lot of times look at that fear, because they're just so comfortable being in love and light, right? It gets stuck or blocked, and then they wonder a lot of times why they end up at a certain point, why they feel blocked, because they've just been hanging out in that love and light frequency bandwidth for so long. They're happy overall, but they're not really deeply fulfilled. All right, so that's the third way. We don't take right or appropriate action, or we take actions that are contrary to what we desire. Sometimes not taking an action is contrary to what we truly desire, right? Not signing up for a retreat, or not signing up for a class, or not going to that event tonight because you're afraid to pick up someone's energy. I have that a lot, and my people do that a lot, right? Or not going somewhere because you're worried you're going to get some kind of fear-based artificial, breathe in something from the air, virus or whatever it is. We have all kinds of reasons why we don't do things, right? We don't take appropriate action, and then we block ourselves and keep ourselves stuck or limited. And then sometimes we do things without thinking or without using the fullness of our own divine intuition. So the actions we take or don't take. So that's number 3. Number 4 of how we create and miscreate. And this is perhaps one of the most challenging ones for people. There's going to be a 5th one. Ah, yes. Okay. I knew 4 was not necessarily it. But number 4 is our overall energy field, our energy field. And this is part of humans are really, really energetically imbalanced overall. And the energy field overall will control us because we don't understand how the energy field works. But we are much more than physical bodies. We're more than mental bodies. We're more than emotional bodies. So the energy field that you are in, and really what you, in a sense, what you are energetically is, we could say, an orb of consciousness. Well, you are consciousness. But your energy field is the energy that is more than the physical body, more than the emotional body, more than the mental body. It's a field of energy that includes those things and is even more than those things, greater than those things. So that energy body has all kinds of energy in your field. One of the key energies in that field that is not yours, I promise, we could refer to it as luge or just inertia. It is density. It's the accumulation. The way I really like to explain it sometimes is the same concept as tartar buildup on your teeth or calcium buildup, like cholesterol buildup in the heart. The idea is there's just a buildup of energy that was not properly cleaned or cleared or resolved. So some of that energetic buildup is in the actual energy fields of the body, also known as chakras or major energy centers. But it's not necessarily, it can be in the body, but it's way more than the body. That energy field is got all kinds of gunk and inertia. Most people identify this as their ego, but it's really not. The ego can also sit as fear inside the amygdala, but it's not yours. It's just energy. The problem is this energy will control you. So you start acting or behaving in ways or feeling or sensing in things that aren't really truth. When you're on the other side of them, you can look back and be like, oh, how come I didn't see that? Or how come I didn't realize it? Or you have the big aha moments like, oh my God, what an epiphany. I realized what I did or how I behaved or what I was thinking or feeling. You know, you get triggered. Trigger responses are from energetic imbalances, high reactivity. A lot of times you can send an email to somebody and you might type the right words, but the energy of the email is just full of not necessarily what you want to be saying or communicating. Another example of energy interfering in your reality that you're miscreating, because one of the things I teach about in my sacred mentorship, the sacred visionary mentorship, is all about finding your core frequency and restoring your core frequency. And that could be another conversation in and of itself. I definitely would love to do a podcast about that at some point. We don't have time to go into it today, but when you're in your core frequency, nothing can disturb you. Really. Nothing can upset you. Nothing can trigger you. Nothing can bother you because you're in the right bandwidth of your energy and you're like feeling sublime. So this is what I mean. And because humans don't really understand energy, they don't understand if they're feeling bad or they're feeling stressed or they're feeling anxious or they're feeling worried about something, that's energy that's interfering and creating the very thing that they don't want. I remember when I was in college, I had this boyfriend and I really liked him. He was into like remodeling cars and I just thought he was so cute. We had a good time together. And I remember I had this underlying fear all the time that he was going to reject me. It was a fear of rejection, right? I mean, that was clear to years ago, right? I don't even have that anymore. Like, I don't really care about any of that kind of thing. Like some people will love me, some people won't, and others are in between. That's fine by me. It's irrelevant for me. But back then in college, that was a big thing. And I remember being so afraid that he was going to reject me and decide he didn't like me. And every time that fear came up, I would try to push it down and squash it. I resisted it. I fought it. And eventually, of course, it happened. It happened. The very thing I was afraid of happened because I did not work with that energy. I fought it and it just got stronger. But that's how people deal with their energy. A lot of times, that's only one way we can deal with it. It's not the best way. So in the Sacred Visionary Mentorship, we have a fear processing exercise that I teach. It's a really fabulous tool. It works so well. It transforms people in 5 minutes once they realize they can use this tool. It's a game changer. All right, so that's one of the ways we miscreate. Here's the fifth one, and that is what we would call karma dharma stuff. And I just want to clarify this because I actually really 100% know that humanity is being freed and liberated from all karma. But we're working our way through it right now. And it's becoming easier and easier because light leaders, and I consider myself one of those, we've been doing the energetic clearing for ourselves. If you're one of the people in the world who feel like you took on like more than you can handle in this lifetime, and it's been an uphill battle, it's been a struggle, it's been really hard for you, it's because you're clearing the heavy work that the rest of humanity can't handle. They've been living with it. They just tolerate it. You're a light leader. You're clearing it for others. And I can't tell you how much easier it is to clear it when you start developing the tools to do so and really learning how to do it with an effective kind of certainty. That said, the karma dharma is the stuff that the soul wants to resolve, or the collective groups want to resolve and want to free and liberate themselves from. They could be things like deathbed regrets from another lifetime. They could be regrets from this lifetime. I could do a whole show on regrets, the energy of regret. It's one of the most challenging energies to work with. Well, let me not get sidetracked there because it can be really used. It can really be used to serve you. But in any case, it's also wounding patterns that were cultivated from this and other lifetimes, deep wounding patterns. You can see that, by the way, in astrology. It's easy to see that like as a Chiron or a Saturn. You can see karma dharma as a north node, south node in the astrology. I always, whenever someone joins the Sacred Mentorship, I give them a little mini astrology reading right off the bat with the key indicators, because even though we can transcend that stuff, we also really have to first know before we can transcend anything. We have to really get the messages we're meant to get. So there's karma dharma influences here, what we're here to resolve, what we're here to free and liberate ourselves from, what we're here to restore, what we're here to share, give, teach. And those are influences in how we create. Now, a lot of people like to talk about some of that as soul contracts. Actually, I could have a whole conversation on soul contracts. I'm at a frequency bandwidth now where I know soul contracts are a bunch of BS. But at one point in my time-space reality, I taught a lot about this because soul contracts were relevant in that frequency bandwidth. At a certain bandwidth, you get beyond them. You're freed and liberated from all of that stuff. And you realize those are just another illusion on the journey, in this another false reality that you were buying into. I hope this makes sense. In any case, that could be included in there because along the journey, you have to resolve those things. But I do really have a knowing that most of those kinds of contracts and things have really been cleared for the bulk of humanity. There's still stuff. We're still working through stuff as a human population evolving. And so it's not that that stuff doesn't influence us in some ways. It's just lesser influence. But it does fall in that umbrella of the karmic, dharmic, soul journey desires to evolve, and those things influence us. And if you've ever had an experience in your life where you were like, wow, that was just meant to be. I remember when I met my ex-husband, what happened was I had been like on a dating app. This was so many years ago, right? I had been on a dating app for so long, and I was dating and dating every night, hours and hours on the dating apps. And they weren't called apps back then. There were like only a few sites at that point. There were like 3. There was like Chemistry. I don't know what they were, but anyhow, whatever they were. And I finally met someone that I really liked, and we were supposed to go out on a date that night. I got all prettied up. I was so excited. And 5 minutes before he was supposed to come get me, or we were supposed to meet, I don't know, he called and he canceled. It was really messed up. And he was very apologetic. He had said he was dating someone else. And he waited to the last minute. It was just such a messed up thing to do. Right? Lack of integrity on his part. And I was heartbroken. So I called my sister, completely heartbroken, crying. And she's like, let's just go out. Let's just go out. Come on. You're all dolled up. At least I can help you feel better. And I mean, if it wasn't for her, it was one of the nicest things she ever did for me. She brought me out and we're in the bar. And the whole time I'm like, I'm leaving. I want to go. I was just a big complainer at that time. I was just not in a happy state. Right. And she's like, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. And I rip my wrist out. Like I'm so angry. Like she's punishing me somehow for trying to make me feel better. Right. And I look at my clock and with a big attitude, I'm like, fine, 5 more minutes. And I'm sitting there staring at my clock. Like she's torturing me, forcing me to stay for 5 more minutes because I was just so upset. And I'm telling you, at minute 4 and 30 seconds, I'm like, we got 30 seconds. We're going to the door. I look at the door. I point at the door. It opens. And in through that door walked the guy who became my husband. And we both looked at each other and I was like, those 2 guys are cute. Next thing I knew, we were playing pool with them. And the next thing I knew after that, I was engaged. Now, that marriage didn't work, but that was a soul contract marriage. Like that was a meant to be. And he might not agree with it, but I know how that moment in time changed my life forever for the better. And I understand the role that that person played in my life. The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. It was not all beautiful and good, but it changed the trajectory of my life forever because of that one thing. And she was the person who got me there. So this is what we could call something karmic, dharmic, soul related. You just have a moment in time that's so big and it's the trajectory of your life is changed. And it could be for the better, or you could think it's for the worse, but maybe it's not. I have a few of those in my life. If you think of your life, like moving to Maui for me was one of those. It changed the trajectory of my life when I moved to Maui. Totally changed me forever. It was those 2 years where I basically started working with all my extrasensory abilities and started developing my capacity to communicate with animals, developing my capacity to communicate with people I'd crossed over, so-called dead people, developing my capacity to see, know, and experience angelics and other beings in the non-physical. The developing my capacity to work with energy. Like it was so dramatically transformative, those 2 years. Developing my capacity to be an energy worker, a healer for animals and humans. And I mean, that has continued to grow. It didn't all happen in those 2 years, but what a game-changing experience from one single move to Maui. Everything else after that, right? So those things influence us too. And some of those are not necessarily, there's only a few of those that happen in your life, not like a handful or 2 handfuls, but they're what affect the entire trajectory of your life. And that happens. Those are karmic, dharmic imprints in your field. When those happen, they're pretty unavoidable. Okay. It's cool to reflect on those, right? Because I'm sure we've all had them there, right? So those are ways we create and miscreate. And it's a combination of conscious and unconscious. Our job is to become more and more conscious of this stuff, how it all works. And that is the realm of my expertise now. That's the area I've taken my service into, because I could have stayed as just an animal communicator, an energy healer, I could have been just an Akashic Records reader, but I just decided to take I could have been just an astrologer. I could have been on and on because my gifts are really, truly profound. I could have just been a person who communicates with dead people when there is no death, right? But I decided to teach other people in the world how to cultivate this within themselves so you can live a better life. Because as you start learning how to create consciously, all of the issues that you're not enjoying in your life are going to be transformed, and you're going to be moving more and more in the direction of living the life that you truly desire, that you truly came here for, of being a positive contribution on earth, which is what the evolution is about, the evolution of humanity, and of being a positive contribution to your community, to the people and or animals you serve, to your loved ones. And this is how you make the global impact that you want to make. And this is how you leave a lasting legacy. You don't leave a legacy based on your wounds and letting them follow you through life and all the traumas, right? Because those traumas are part in your field. That's what's part of what's in your energy field. That's part of what's in your unconscious. That's part of what's affecting you emotionally. That's part of where your triggers are. Like, it's all linked. A lot of it is so linked into those traumas. They have to be healed and resolved. A lot of that's what's stored in different sections of the brain, especially the amygdala. A lot of it is stored in your energy field. A lot of it is stored in your own Akashic records, right? That's linked into your karma, dharma, so-called soul contracts, etc. So this is why, as we resolve these issues in a more conscious way, and as we become more conscious about how to work with energy and how to utilize our mental plane, our mental body, the mental body, and how we work with maturing the emotional body, which is way beyond the mental plane. This is not something you can think your way through. This is not something you can analyze your way through. This is not something you can learn through study. This is not something you can mind shift your way through, right? You have to go beyond the mental plane. But as we work with these fields, we become more conscious. And as we become more conscious, we become more effective at creation. I just want to do one little quick side note here before I wrap about manifestation. So a lot of people love to play with the game of manifestation. I love it too. But the reason people aren't really effective manifestors is because of these 5 things we've gone through. This is why people have challenges in the realm of manifesting. Any of these different reasons can be influencers in the creation, co-creation, collaborative process, and how we create and miscreate. All right, I hope that's been helpful. I will definitely also do a podcast on manifesting because it's a whole topic in and of itself that could be spent hours and hours on. If this has been helpful, please do me a favor. Do me a big favor. And if you would, be willing to share the podcast and to do a shout out or leave a review. I'd be so grateful. Okay, thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'm sending you so much love. All right, farewell for now. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening today. If you loved the show and if you benefited in any way, if it helped you to up-level or expand your consciousness, if you gained any new insights or ideas, if it made you think or become more aware, or if there were some strategies or intuition that you may have benefited from in any way, would you please do me 2 easy and simple favors? First, if you would be willing to leave a review, it would mean the world to me. I'd be so grateful. And second, if you're willing to share this show with anyone else who would benefit, you can either post it on your social media or just email it to someone and share it with another person or any other people. It would be so awesome. This kind of thing is so helpful in expanding consciousness on the planet and helping others to benefit from this kind of teaching, which just simply isn't generally readily available in the mainstream. So sharing it really helps others benefit and helps our planet evolve and awaken. Plus, expressing gratitude and generosity in this way will also expand your capacity to give and receive even more. Either way, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for participating and for sharing, and overall, just for being the magnificent, the spectacular, the brilliant, the fabulous, the wonderful you that you truly are, and for allowing yourself to be the very best version of you today and every day. All my love and gratitude to you.